You're the affirmation. You're the affirming quality. There's a negation of a false reference, and then there's a finding out of what's going on. Yeah. If you attempt to find out about what's going on from the false reference, all you're going to get is that frame. Yeah. So this is the point. And a lot of spirituality, in my view, or the stuff that I like, is more based on warning, really. They're attempting to warn you of certain dynamics that may be going on without your being aware of them. Yeah. So the word selfing, this is an activity of a mental process, and the mental process is sort of three-pronged. There's thought system, there's memory, perception. Yeah. So this mental process called selfing is a verb. It's an activity. It implies a noun, but there is no noun. Yeah. So the verb is the act of being identified as a self. So it sounds like there's the verb of act of being identified, and then there's the noun self, but to me it's a whole verb. There is no self to be identified with. There's a self to be identified as. Yes. It's an activity. This is the beauty of it. It's not so, nor can it ever be so. The thing is, it can seem to be so to us. Yeah? And the word seemingly is really, really important in the sense of like the Course in Miracles, which is you and I give everything all the meaning it has, and in the world of seemingly so, everything is either appearing to be true or false to you. In other words, you're the basis of the truth or the falsehood, in a sense, yeah? So when we have, I'm from recovery, yes, whatever that means, but we have acronyms for things, and one of the acronyms we use a lot is false evidence appearing real for fear, yeah? So most of the time, the narration in one's head is false evidence appearing real. Now, false evidence obviously can't be real, because it's false. Yeah? But false evidence can appear to be real to what is real, which is us. Yeah? Not as Paul, but as what we are. So the mental state is constantly producing false evidence, and then it's, in a sense, it's our role to either see it as false or take it as true. It can't make it true, but it can seem to be true to what's true. So in a sense, we are the active nature of reality here. We are seen as awareness, yeah? Mm-hmm. So that awareness, in a sense, like the Course in Miracles has a statement, you and I are dreaming this dream. Now, I don't believe there's a dream. I just believe there's dreaming. And I don't believe there's a dreamer. I believe there's dreaming, yeah? So there's, you and I are dreaming this dreaming. And then it says, we forget that we're dreaming, which is an incredible statement, really. How could the dreaming forget that it's dreaming? Well, in how it seems to forget that it's dreaming, yeah? So the forgetfulness will seem to be so, but it's not so. This is the solution. The solution is there is no real problem. It's an activity. That's the solution. From the activity, from the problem, you need a solution. But if the solution dawns on you, it reveals that what the problem was an activity, therefore there's no need for a solution. That's an incredible solution. So now, you don't need to find a solution or have a solution or be vigilant about a solution. You are what you're looking for. So now that which seemed to be a goal or something to achieve and then maybe lose, it's always available at all times, right where we are, with no requirement necessary to meet it unless you make some up, basically. Yeah. So, selfing is this act of being identified as the act of being identified as a self. And the sense of self I'm talking about, I'm not talking about ego. Because if you ever hear people talk about ego, they'll say, my ego, or I have an ego, and then maybe they have the great grace to lose an ego. What is that sense of being the one who has the ego and loses the ego? That, to me, is the bondage of self. It's an activity, yeah? Its activity is to claim. Yeah? So what's brought to its attention through the conscious contact, it will claim, yeah? And this is how it goes. It's a presupposing. A great master, Ramana Maharshi, puts it this way in many of his writings, and they usually deem it the problem, yeah? And that is, there's a presupposing of a non-existent thing, voila, yeah, that wants to get salvation for the non-existent thing. That's the speed bump that you always go over, yeah? And it says, all right, now he doubles down on this. He says, if your spiritual practices themselves are reinforcing the non-existent thing, how can they destroy it? That's why, to me, spirituality, in a sense, is a warning about spirituality. Basically, like you would have in a cigarette pack, they'd have a warning, this could be dangerous to your health. I think these statements should be stamped on every New Age book. This could be dangerous to your spiritual health, because you'll call that spiritual health your health. Just like this is what happens. So there's the act of being identified as a self that comes after the conscious contact, but it implies it's before the conscious contact. Now you have a feeling or a vague sense that you're the one who's conscious. That's the heist. And then as soon as there's a belief that you're the one who's conscious, then another belief arises, which is impossible, which is you can be unconscious. And now you start to seek to become more conscious, which verifies the insane idea that you could be less conscious. And so on and so forth. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And in a sense, I humbly believe you're never going to think yourself out of the thinker. You're never going to meditate yourself out of the meditator. It's not going to happen. Has it? The only time it seems to happen is an experience which comes and goes. It never seems to stabilize. You do 1 weekend, and then 3 weeks, and then 3 months, and you go, all you believe is more is going to produce what a little didn't. It's not going to work. It never will, because you're involved in it. So in seeing the heist, you won't be looking from the heist. Yeah? If you're looking from the heist, it's never investigated again. You just assume that you're this long-lasting, independent, separate entity that needs to know Buddhism and stuff like that. And so there's great masters who come along, and they just warn us. And one of them, my favorite, is Huang Po, an old Zen master from China. And he says, listen, whatever can be perceived cannot be perceiving. So there we all go, as the body. The body is not seen. Yeah? Whatever can be perceived, which I'm perceiving, and you're perceiving this, cannot be what's perceiving. End of story, period. Yeah? And then move on. You can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. You can't use big M mind, which I believe is awareness and everything else, and nothing else. Yeah? You can't use mind to seek mind. You can't use light to seek light. You can do it for eons and nothing's going to happen. Why is that? Because it makes a lot of sense for me to seek the Buddha. But it won't make any sense if you are the Buddha. Why would the Buddha look for the Buddha if it's the Buddha? If you're looking for the Buddha, you must think you're something other than the Buddha, obviously. Or it would make absolutely no sense to be looking for what you are. You would be relegated to only be what you are. And that's the whole condition here. We cannot know what we are. You cannot study what you are, but you can know what you're not, and you can study about what you're not. All of non-duality, there are no non-duality teachers. All you're teaching is duality. All you're teaching is about something that you can know and understand, and when you do, it distills into one possibility. I'm not that. And suddenly, as soon as you see that it's I'm not that, another possibility arises that didn't seem to be available, which is I can be free from it. Now you're on the right path, which is no path. You are what you're looking for. As St. Francis says, what's looking is what you're looking for. The seeker is the sought. Yes? All these cryptic little one-liners are the greatest scriptures of all time, because you can just hear that one sentence and the mind can entertain it, and you will not believe what possibilities arise. Yeah? You will understand the word serenity and no peace. All of this stuff are expressions of the mind shifting out of self-centeredness into what you maybe want to call centeredness. Yeah? And centeredness is everywhere, so it's always available at all times, right where you are. When, now, where, here. It never changes. You are the context, and everything else that can be seen and disappear is content. Yeah? We take ourselves to be the content, believing we're the content. We may even look for the context, but in fact, we're not the content. Yes? It's like the old story of like the lion. So the lion, the mother and the cub. The mother gets killed, and the cub isn't that old, and the cub starts wandering around and doesn't know what's going on. And then he sees a herd of sheep. So he starts running towards the sheep. The sheep see it as a lion, and they start moving away. But then they realize this lion doesn't even know it's a lion. So they ingratiate him into the herd, to the flock, and he tries to live the best sheep life he can live. So, you know, his hair is straight. He's good for sweaters or anything. And, you know, he feels a little irritable, restless, and discontent, but he's a sheep. So he's living like, he marries a sheep, he has sheep kids, becomes a big person in the sheep herd. But he's still very, very strange. He doesn't feel right. And then suddenly one day, an old lion comes in, and he's looking for some food, and he sees the sheep herd, and he starts chasing the sheep. And then he sees this other lion, and he thinks, it's joining the hunt. But then he realizes the other lion's running away with the sheep. So it veers off and goes to the other lion. It doesn't say a damn thing, just grabs it, drags it over to the water hole, sticks both their heads over the water. The young lion sees its reflection, and the old lion looks at him and goes, roar, and it roars. It doesn't have to take 3 months of roaring lessons, yeah? It didn't take 1 second to become not the sheep, because it was never the sheep. It was always a lion. No matter how much seeming identification as a sheep, it never changed the fact that it's a lion. So the establishment of what's already so takes absolutely no time. No doing, no having, no not having, no non-doing. It just is. The only problem is when the poor lion, if they come to meetings like this where people are going, you're a lion, and you like it, you hear the sound, and then here it comes. You're a lion, you're a lion, you're a lion. But once it hits your little sheep ears, it gets translated into I can become like a lion. That's not non-duality. Non-duality is not a becoming of anything. It's a negation of what you believe can become and unbecome. That's all it is. It's just negating a reference that's off. Yeah? And then you, as what you are, will find out about what you are by being what you are. So in a way, you're the seeing, you are the seeing of what you're not. That's the closest you can ever get to knowing you, is by like a boomerang shot. You see what you're not, and then the intimation of what you are becomes obvious. That's what people call the presence. You will sense the presence. And so, to me, the presence really is undirected attention and interest. Because the mental state is constantly directing attention and interest to its preoccupation about you, which means you have a lot of interest and attention in what's not happening. Because in what's not happening, in your memories of the past and your concerns about the future, when you're thought about as a body. That's the only way you can be pictured 3 years ago. You can't picture yourself 3 years ago as spirit. You picture the thought, you don't. The thought system pictures you as a body. If you're devoted to the thought system, your devotion is going to appear as a body. You are going to be so concerned with what's not happening, it will have the ability to eclipse what's happening. So you'll come into a thing like this, there is no freaking threat here at all. You can walk out and everything. But when someone's flipping out now, it's never about now. It's usually about last week and next week. They almost, in a way, they haven't lost the ability, but it's sort of in a deep slumber. They do not have the ability to respond to what's happening because they're constantly in the reaction to what's not happening. And mental anxiety is producing like the physiological effects of fear with no apparent threat. You're being zapped all day, basically, by your head. It's zapping you and you're contracting. So if you recognize the activity, if you see it, you're not looking from it. And sooner or later, that sense of, if I can see it, how could I be it, will dawn on you. And suddenly your interest and attention now will be directed by another mind modality, not self-centeredness. You will have an immunity to what's not happening because you will be awake to what's happening. You will never get gypped again in this life. You'll be seemingly awake to being awake. The fact is totally we're all awake, but we can seem not to be awake to that, or we can seem to be awake to that. But it doesn't change the fact. Yeah? So look at our baseline. Look at our everyday baseline. One thing that's the basis of all our little unique, separate, terminally unique little storylines is seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, and touching. Yes? Consciousness, or whatever, onness, or whatever you want to imply it with a word. Now, do you, after you go to yoga and get your class of, you know, whatever you had drink here, all this stuff, do you ever go to seeing classes? Do you actually join with people and try to see better? Do you try to hear better? Do you try to feel better? Touch better? Do you? Does the seeing demonstrate any volition? If my eyes are open, I'm going to see whatever goes by this window. Even if I took a vow never to see a bird, if a bird flew by, I saw it. The vow obviously comes after the conscious contact, not before the conscious contact. But in the selfing, that which comes after it is implied to be before. That's the frustration. If you take yourself to be the thinker and you think the thoughts are yours, you have an assumption that they should behave. Yeah? In other words, when I have a big important day tomorrow, all right, you've thought enough today. I want you to stop at 11. You can start again at 8, but I need 9 hours of non-thought. Has it ever occurred? The frustration is there's an assumption of power when you don't have any. The sense of you is a thought. It's a thought that says it's the thinker of all the other thoughts. It's a thought. It has no substance. It has no sway here. It's a narration after the fact. Remember when you were a kid, you'd run around, and then some point, somewhere along the line, there was a point where every event, every action after that was always accompanied by thought. You thought, who's watching me walk in the room? You know, on nauseam, over and over again. Because the thoughts are all about reinforcing the idea of you being a body. That's why there's so many thoughts. You know, I was a house painter. If I walked in here, I don't need 70,000 thoughts about painting this room. I'm very rarely surprised. There's usually a ceiling, some trim, walls. Yeah, maybe I need a few thoughts where to go to lunch or something. But 70,000 a day? What the hell are they doing? Because every thought that's going on, every thought is being the tail of the donkey is being pinned on it. Because they're called your thought, and now the thought is used to imply the thinker. That's what happens. The selfing claims everything we call the basic activity of being human. It's claimed it. It's used the thoughts to always point to the thinker or the thought about. Use all the feelings to the one who has the feelings. Yeah, all the actions to the actor. This is the activity of the bondage of self. You have never been bonded. The bondage is truly of self, yeah? It's an activity. If you're under it, it seems as real can be because you are the reality. So I did whatever, you know. I had a pretty good resume. I wasn't the greatest spiritual seeker, but India a few times, retreats in the forests of Thailand. Then I heard this message, and I swear it was like my spiritual pants fell down. And thank God I never tried to pick them up. It was just because I didn't have much of an identity. I was a house painter, and I was a bad one. So the only thing I could hang my hat on was spiritual seeker. I thought I was a pretty good spiritual seeker. Had the loving gaze. People sensed the presence. But when I saw this, when I heard this, what happened was that seeming activity spanned a lot of years. And it was like a crane came in with this statement. The presupposing of a non-existent thing, wanting to get salvation for a non-existent thing. And then suddenly all this years of dispersed just went and fit right. That shoe fit perfectly, completely. It shut the whole thing down. And thank God I didn't let it kick back on. Because nothing is the gift that keeps on giving. You're not going to get anything from this meeting. You're not. If it goes well, you'll get nothing. And if you keep getting nothing, it's going to turn into fucking everything to you. Yeah? You will be what you've been looking for, finally. 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 It's like a relaxation you can't get with 50 Thai massages. I don't know what it is. It's like something just goes boom, boom. You know? It's just everything looks exactly the same, but it ain't the same. Because you ain't the same. Like a plate tectonic just shifted, yeah? So what happened when the solution really dawns on you, this is what happened with me because I have a seed assignment to share. There's like a reverse engineering why it wasn't, the relief didn't seem to be available before. And I'm telling you, you're at every scene of every crime. So it's more like a reverse engineering. Yeah, because now you have a stabilized relief, you're traveling lighter, which traveling lighter to me is the key. Because here we're in seemingly time, so you can be great Sunday, but you could be terrible Monday, yeah? Because everything is very volatile here. There's no place you can find reliability here. It has to come from the otherness. You can't find it in here, yeah? You have to be the stabilization. You have to be. Like Jesus says, you're in this world, but you're not of this world. The ofness is what we are. And that's where you find relief in the inness from the ofness. In other words, you are what you've been looking for. You are what you wanted to truly rely on, because it's the only reliable condition, because it's not of this place. It's not of time. It's not of thought and effort. It's being itself. Yeah? It's being. And that's the only possibility we have concerning what we are, is being. That's all we can do. You'll never get gypped. Never. You'll be so completely here. The insane idea that you need to get into a moment will be totally dismissed, because it's impossible for you to have ever been out of any moment. Yeah? And the idea of trying to get out of your head is totally based on the fact that you think you're in your head, and that's not so either. So you suddenly aren't trying to get out of what you can't be in, and you're not trying to get into what you can't be out of. When I was seeking, if I saw me, that was why I was seeking. I didn't want to be this whatsoever. I didn't. I thought it would look a lot more glamorous, a lot more exciting. I would have said, that's exactly why I'm driven to sit for fucking 3 weeks for 13 hours a day. The whole idea of spirituality to me is totally bogus, because we don't have a touchstone to compare it with. We have to buy freaking anything. A loving gaze doesn't mean damn thing. None of it means anything. You are not what can be perceived. That's the joy. You stop looking for yourself and you start looking from yourself, in a sense. So in my view, the most important information is to describe how an impossibility seems possible. And this is how it's been revealed to me, or through this, which is the first movement of this selfing is the claim, whatever it's brought into contact. Yeah? So you can recognize its impressions, its footprints, by the word my in the English language. Yeah? So let's say I used to use this example, let's say we have a thing up here and we write the word money, and we write the word sex, and we write the word health. Now meaning would kick up based on what you think your condition is, yeah? I'm going to change those words completely, but without changing the word at all. And now put my in front of it, my money. So here, I wish all of you to have a lot of money, but I don't want you to have any of my money. You see the difference? It's hugely. This is what's happening all day. Things are happening all day, but you're not noticing this add-on. You're not noticing the activity of my. That's where all the weight gets distributed from. That's where right now, for many of us, what's not happening is more important than what's happening. Yes? Because the weight has been put into yesterday and tomorrow and causing it to seem so much more valuable because that's where you appear as a self and as a body, is in memory. The sense of self, it can't generate light. It can be a reflection of light. And so mind, by remembering itself as a body in the past, remembers itself now as a body. And by worrying about itself as a body in the future, it remembers itself now as a body. That's why all that activity is going on. It's to do one thing and one thing only. Reflect this sense of you as an image, as something that can be thought about. And therefore the thoughts coagulate to the seeming space, and then suddenly it seems like there's a thing there. That's selfing. It's not going to change. It's going to do what it does, but you don't have to be invested in it anymore. That's the freedom from the bondage of self. It's an activity that for it to have the ability to bind, you must believe it. You are the total juice of it. If you're taken out, it has no juice. You'll see that which you took so real as paper thin, as imaginary, absolutely with no substance at all. What happened? Did it turn into that? No. Your interest and attention was removed from it. And what happens? My interest and attention gets removed from what's not happening, which is producing tons of anxiety at this moment, now enriches my moment. Yeah? I have an ease and comfort in the situations I'm in because I'm not in them. This is going to be forgotten in a second when I leave, like it never freaking happened. Every talk I've ever attended, the only reason why I ever showed up is because I never showed up. Do you think if I thought about coming to Nyanja, would I have come? No, of course not. Who the hell wants to leave California and go to New Jersey in March? No way. If I sat and said, I wouldn't do anything most of the time. You just suit up and show up because it's like an Etch-a-Sketch. It gets erased like immediately. None of my friends even ask me how the trip was anymore. I said, it's over. That's what I say. It's over. How did the talk go? Just the way it always goes. I have gotten nothing out of it, ever. It's like a big empty hole. I swear. I leave here. I got so charged. I didn't go to get charged. Nothing. It's just empty. Incredibly empty. But that emptiness, that nothingness is the gift that keeps on giving. How much something have you gotten? It always turns into nothing, doesn't it? Why not go to nothing and see what happens? You've tried to accumulate experience. Has it ever made a freaking real difference? When the understandings we've tried to practice so diligently, were they there when the shit hit the fan? Did all your relationship work in the relationship? This is tactile. You're awake. You're awake, period. There's no fanfare or parades. You're just on, incessantly on, and there's a sense of it. The thought system will try to claim it, but it has to fail, because I'll tell you something, nothing stumps it. It can work with some things, but it can't work with nothing. I remember when I got first introduced to this idea, my head tried to use it as an advantage. I was living in Australia, and my girlfriend was leaving, and she says, Paul, when I'm out, can you do the dishes? So I said, yeah, sure. She got back, the dishes weren't done, and she says, Paul, why didn't you do dishes? I said, there is no Paul, you know? There's no dishes. And she said, screw you, freaking do the dishes. So my head is like a desert tortoise with a coyote. The coyote wants to get to the meat, but after a few minutes, it realizes there's no access point. It gets bored and it leaves. That's what happens with nothing. It's like the mental state's like a crow, like a raven. It likes glittery objects. Once it doesn't get what it wants, it gets bored, and that's when it gets really good. It's the disinterest in the mental state is where the real interest lies. You lose the need. You have no interest in liberation, because what needs to be liberated isn't you. You lose all interest in it, completely, clearly. You have no interest in it. Why would you, if you're being what you are? You couldn't bring about these results in 30 years, which are readily available when you see what you're not. You cannot produce these effects. They have to grow out of something, and they grow out of nothing, basically. So if you see it, you won't be looking from it, yeah? You can see it attempting to use whatever you do. See, I humbly believe there were certain things here that you did that were very, very noble. They were 5,000-year-old lineages. They were untouchable. This thing will claim anything. The selfing will claim whatever it is. It will claim 3,000-year-old robe wearing. It will claim tattooed motorcycle driver. It doesn't matter. It's seeking to produce a sense of being the one who has the tattoos, to being the one who has this, to being the one who does that. Yes? That's all. That's all it's looking for. What comes after doesn't matter. It will glue on anything. Yeah? And it has the supreme position. It comes after, but now it's been anointed to be that which is before, to the point where you have claimed, it has claimed consciousness. And it's telling you the story of what consciousness is, which is something you can develop and or lose, which is insane. Have you ever seen the seeing in your own life demonstrate any thought and effort to be seen? Have you ever had to make effort to touch something, to feel a touch, yeah? Have you ever? If your hearing is bad, it's because of the ear, not that which is hearing. Yeah? Has it ever demonstrated any thought or effort to be conscious? I mean the basic. Why would you think that thought and effort would get you there? You can't arrive at where you already are. If you're waiting to get it, you're not going to get it. If you're hoping you can experience your own absence, it's not happening. Has it happened? And did it stabilize? Then it's not worth a damn fucking thing. You sense it in the room now, eh? That's us. We've shown up. questions? I did 3 talks yesterday. I'm sort of getting tired. Like beating a dead horse. You know? To me, it's an invitation, not a dissertation, yes? I have too much faith in what you are, and I'm telling you humbly, I'm not talking to you about mind. I'm talking to mind about you. I gave up trying to talk to you about mine a long time ago. It goes nowhere. But I'm talking to big M mind about you. And I know what we're up against, because it's like, you ever see that 1,000-armed Buddha? Well, let's picture him with 1,000 mitts. So whatever message you can throw, it catches. When it catches the message, it neuters it. Yeah? Because it's always catching the ball as the sheep, while all the while it's a lion. It's like a clone. You ever see the movie Moon? I always like this movie. There's a clone, and he works on this moon, and they found a new energy source for all the technology on Earth. And so they have this huge combine going. It's only run by one guy. And he's a Red Sox fan, and he's only got 5 days left, and he has a wife and kid on Earth, and he's da-da-da. But he's really a clone, yeah? It's all programmed, this idea of being from Boston and everything like that. And then suddenly he gets confronted with indisputable evidence that he's a clone, which would probably be okay, right? Clone to clone, you know, clone realizes it's a clone. Great, let's go on, you know, cloning. But what happens is the evidence is caught by the human programming. And the human programming produces a reaction to hearing that it's a clone, which isn't that great, yeah? It doesn't sound too great as a human to be a clone. You know what I mean? This is what's happening in spirituality. You're hearing a message, but you're not checking out how it's being heard. I'm telling you, the process of selfing is faster than any other process here. How are you going to outdraw that gun? It's going to win every time. The only place it loses is in the gunfight in timelessness, which is what we are, because there the gun's always out. It's your own nature is what stumps the mental state. You're not going to get out of mind the mental state through the mental state. So this is a spiritual subpoena. You've been served. I've done my job. That's it. Yeah. Sometimes I go on tours in Toronto and stuff, and for some reason I know a lot of kirtan players, yeah. And so usually they open the thing and it's beautiful. Everyone, you can go to Bliss and everyone's excited. Then when I get up, I say, well, here's the bad news. Sometimes I feel that way. I'm a bringer of bad news because you're not going to get anything out of it. You're going to get nothing, ever. You can't return it. There's no warranty. Nothing. If I was a spiritual consumer, I'd be super pissed. All those years and I didn't get shit. Yeah, exactly. What can a failed system show you? It's failed. Hasn't it shown you yet? If the shoe fits, wear it. And you'll realize it isn't yours. Well, that's, you know. Any questions?
So, I have a question. So I'm in education, I run a school, and I think, you know, it sounds like very often we are almost reinforcing this duality and like thinking about thinking and, you know, and not separating the thought from the thinker. Is there a way, you know, to help out like our students not get overly, you know, I mean, if the education system sort of helps to reinforce the idea of this sort of illusion that is I, right? Is there a way to sanely and still meet, like, you know, our political sort of mandate to do this and make sure kids can read and write and think? Right? How do, you know, is there a way to help them, not, like, to do this process, I guess, without just digging the trench deeper? I guess is the question.
Well, I'm not an educational, but I think there's a lot of direction comes out of holding the space. Yeah? Not outwardly directing, but just being what you are will always speak louder than what you say, yes? I find holding the space is really the biggest job here. It's what you're doing all the time, because people are seeing you as the way they see it. So you're basically, you're not even needed to be there. And yet that holding the space, I mean, it's very powerful and potent. Sometimes when we try to think to try to formalize or make something rote or something, it's not going to work out. Just be what you are, and they'll pick it up, because they are what they are. Yeah, that's how I see it. I've seen it with, like, my girlfriend at the time. I met her I knew her for a few months, and then she was diagnosed with cancer, yep. And very suddenly. She was having trouble with her stomach, had the thing, and they found a big tumor in it. And so basically, I just held the space. Really no effort on my part. And then she would sing my great praises, but I didn't do anything. I was just available because I'm available. See, if you're present or awake to the fact, you're available. And when you're available, you'll be of service. Yeah? It's not something I'm going to do. I'm not going to do service to make myself available, then sense the presence. You are the presence, which implies, just by the word, you're available because you're present, yeah? And in that availability, you're going to be put to service. You don't have to direct the jobs. You'll be finding yourself, you'll be directed into the jobs, yeah? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's how I find it, so. Yeah, yeah.
Can you riff on I need do nothing?
I thought I just did, but
well,
yeah.
You did.
Go to the website. There's 800 talks on that. I need do nothing. No. Well, I need do nothing. You've heard it. It's a chapter in the Course in Miracles. It's a very, very famous chapter where they talk about all the ways, like meditation and service and bhakti, devotional stuff. And because they have a very beautiful statement, because the bigger mind intends it, it's going to work, but it may take a long, long time. So it says, if you're reading this book right now, maybe it's for you, and one of the things it's going to do for you is save you time. So it says basically, because all of that stuff is going to lead to one realization, eventually, I need do nothing. So why not start there? That's my addition. They doesn't say that in the course, but why not start there? If there are all your somethings are going to lead to nothing, why not, jump a couple of rows and get right to nothing? And I found it to be so. I've lost. This when I heard it was like an unspoken yes, and it's not. It's been reverberating ever since. Yeah, and at this point, I would say it's the last answer, because I haven't looked for another answer, and all the other answers I never had can say that, because there was always a looking for another answer. This one put to end all looking for any other answers. Yeah. It's just see the mental logic. The mental logic sees a world of nouns and verbs, where in my sense there's just verbing. There's no noun to be found. So there's just dreaming. There's no dream. Everything has happened, but nothing's happened. Everything is happening, but nothing's happened. Nothing ever culminated into being so. It just has been seemingly so. We're the only so-ness here. Yeah? Everything else is dreaming. So if you want to recognize yourself, you can't be looking for a thing. You've got to see it as, a verb recognizes another verb, yeah? It's like if you went to the river, the Hudson River, and I got a glass and I took some of that water out, and I said, I got the Hudson River, but something was lost by me getting the river water, which is the rivering, yeah? Which is the whole, that's the river. It's not water, it's, yes, rivering. So when the mental, and because all the, see, this is what selfing does. See, people, if they hear this message, they get in touch with me and they go, oh, I've been selfing all day. No, you haven't been selfing all day. The product of the selfing is the feeling of being the one that was selfing all day, or the feeling that the selfing was driving you crazy. That's the product of the selfing. Yeah? Is the sense of being the one. It's like the stopper. It's like the, see, here's all this verbing. The selfing takes you, the verb, selfing just goes like this, but what it does, it produces this reaction where a noun pops up. And now, life isn't seen as happening, it's interpreted as it's happening to me. Yeah. Then let's say something occurs, there's like a clear seeing, and this one gets knocked down. And then the verbing keeps going, but suddenly the head will go, oh, I'm super clear. The noun shows up, yeah? And this is what it's attempting to do. While this streaming is going on, it wants to pop up and say, it's happening to me. I'm doing it, yes? This is what, but if, see, these are safe realizations. I'm clear, yeah? I've got a love engaged, you don't, you know, all this. You know, everything, all this, yeah? But this is what really happens. It goes like this. And then you're seen. This whole thing you call you, the Alpha Omega, is seen. So suddenly, the impliedness that you're behind the camera is seen through. This is always in front of the camera. What's behind the camera is what we are. What appears in front of the camera is what we're not. And this what we're not is constantly implying it is what we are. But it never gets behind the camera. This can be perceived. It is not what's perceiving. That's what happens. Yeah. It's happening now. We already are established in it. We just don't think so. We allow thought to produce a space or a distance where there isn't any. Yep.
Isn't there an element of nihilism in the nothingness? Like, why should I care if a Trump gets elected or anybody else? Because I'll have to be a pro-Trump or an anti-Trump or a Democrat or Republican or...
That's usually coming from the mental state itself. That's its reactions to stuff like that, of the emptiness, yes. Just like when people think they are paradoxes, it's only because they're trying to figure something out from a failed system. When people see how life really works, their mental state thinks it's paradoxical because it doesn't work like the mental logic, thank God. Yeah? So this nihilism isn't from the emptiness, it's a reaction by the mental state. Yeah.
So is appearance everything? What you see is what you get.
Have you gotten enough?
What's enough?
What you see is what you get. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't either.
No. You've already been gotten at that level. When it's what you see is what you get, you've been already gotten. Yeah. Yes. It's just a humble invitation, really. It's not a topic of debate. I don't care if you like it or not. But I just feel like a mailman. I don't want to go in and read the letters with you. I just delivered the letter. You're on your own.
I don't want to go in either.
You made a reference about recovery.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you see any parallels between the two.
Yes, well, I'm seeing this message from the quote-unquote eyes of recovery. I've been in recovery for 29 years, so yeah, I frame it that way because a lot of the expression of the solution demonstrated itself in recovery. Yeah, like there's a statement in recovery out of this big book that says, being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Yeah. Now I had read that hundreds and thousands of times, but then something seemed to take precedent. And when I read it, I saw self as a foreign installment. Yeah, I saw it as a parasitical movement. And that's the only way you're going to ever be able to entertain being free from it, is realizing it's not you. All your other freedom has been co-opted and you're trying to be free as it. And that's why it's not working, yeah? So that happened. So I saw it, self, manifested in various ways, has defeated us. We're the us. And then there's this foreign installment or a parasitical movement. Any way you can provoke an image of other, yeah? And it just blew my freaking mind. And ever since, I've never not seen it that way. Yeah? And a possibility that was heretofore not seemingly available became instantaneously available. As soon as I saw it wasn't me, the next possibility, I can be free from it. And that's how it worked. You're not going to be free as it or through it or for it. It's from. Yeah? It's an activity that there can be an abstaining of. If it isn't about you, you will lose interest in it. I'm serious. The only reason why we're so into it, it's about us. Would you, if you had would you think of Stanley, unless you had a grudge against him? Oh, what was Stanley doing 8 years ago? And he stopped at the stop sign. If he would have went left, would his whole life would have been different? I'm sure you would have met his wife at the gas station. You're not going there for Stanley, but you've been listening to the same thing about you for 40 years. You're not in love with the song. You're in love with the fucking guest. That's it. In Buddhism, they call it the cherishing of self. That's what it is. We're coddling it. We're defending it. We'll die to be right about it. It's speaking, and when it enters any topic in our life, when we see it, we call it me. If you see it as other, the one quality it does not have, it cannot see. It's an activity. We are awareness. It isn't. We can be aware of it, but it cannot be aware of us. It's an activity, a mental activity. As they say in the Course, if anyone's into the Course, there's a great riff I like to do on page 468. It says, the brain interprets to the body because it is a part of the body. So the brain is interpreting this whole event to the body. You know, how much more do you need to hear? If you're relying on the thought system pictures you as a body. That's all. It doesn't see you as spirit. It doesn't see you as nothing. It has a determined opinion of you that you're a thing. And it doesn't give a damn if you try to become a spiritual thing, because the thing will still be the main reference. It doesn't care if you go for it for 50 years. There's no threat there whatsoever, because it will just claim everything you do and use it to imply the doer. And it will supply the reference of the doer. It has no concern with spirituality. It will go on retreats and fucking do tons of shit. There's no threat there at all. It will. Some people go to like over 500 meetings here of satsang. They're so fucking pissed, especially if they think someone else is awake and they're not. I've gone to more meetings than they have. I've done more. It's just unbelievable. Look at the word awakening. Wouldn't we be better off if we never heard about it? I swear. You could have a better day in Nyanja if awakening wasn't this big freaking idea. And look at enlightenment. The word enlightenment, one of its definitions is the cessation of all suffering. What's happening with enlightenment that's claimed by the mental state? It's producing suffering. I'm not enlightened. The worst is, I was once awake, but now I'm not awake. So therefore, I must have done something to blow it. Yeah, it's all self-centeredness. It's all obsession with self. No one has ever been awake. And if people describe an event about what's always happening, the dawning of what's always happening disqualifies it as an event. What's always happening doesn't happen. It's always happening. The event just made it obvious. People don't mean it, but they talk about, oh, I woke up in Walmart on a rainy October day It was Monday sale day of appliances. I was in the appliance aisle and a toaster hit me. And I woke up. So now people are going Monday to fucking Walmart. They have their friend push the toaster on it. They're trying to produce something that cannot be produced. Because we want to get it. It's no fun if you're not there. That's how the mental logic is. Why the hell, if enlightenment is the absence of me, that's the last place I want to go. I won't be there to enjoy it. Like there was an old joke by, remember Ramesh Balsekar? He's had a great little joke. He says, all right, he's at a spiritual group. He says, listen, which one would you rather have, $1 million or enlightenment? So everyone says enlightenment. He says, I'd take the $1 million. At least I'll be there to enjoy it. It's true. I wish I could go to the jungles and do ayahuasca. I would. I'd love to fucking paint my face and look at an armadillo for 8 hours. And I could write a great blog about my journey and meeting the shaman and everything like that. I got nothing to say. It's totally boring. I mean, jeez, you wouldn't even get one thumb up if I described what's happening to me. Because it's nothing. There's just incessant seeing and tons of passing shit. That's what happens. It's so beautiful because what really gives the meaning to temporariness is consistency. It's mind-boggling how many of the partitions made up by our head get totally erased, and you just see this as a huge neural event, and not you as an observer. That's the mental state. You're the paint. You're in the mix. You're going like that. Never ending, never being, there's no entrance, there's no exit. You can't get out, you can't get in. It's a whole nother ballgame. Yeah. If I really was on a Facebook, there'd be no followers. What am I going to say? Oh, well, went to the store, got a soy latte, wasn't that good. I really liked the one I had in New York City last year, much better. You know, who the hell would follow that? But I'm packing for my trip to meet the shaman. Of course there's shamans or something like that. I'm just gonna kick myself into a realization.